Before we left New York, I remember Googling things like how much does it cost to live in Mexico? How much does it cost to move your things to Mexico? All these variables, these decisions that are overwhelming, honestly, before such a big move, moving for a different country. So this week on our Sit Down Sunday, I want to go over those numbers, the real cost. Again, when you Google something, it seems unreal a little bit. There's numbers that aren't clarified on those Google searches. So I hope to be honest and just have a genuine conversation. If this is your first time here, I have a weekly series called Sit Down Sunday where I sit down and self-reflect about the lessons I've learned thus far moving to Mexico from New York with my wife, Lynette. So if the first time you've been here, please like and subscribe, sit down, get some coffee, get some tea, whatever you like, and enjoy this conversation. I want this to feel like I'm sitting down with you and having a genuine conversation. Please comment below if there's something you're curious about. Please comment. This question or this topic actually came by someone who commented earlier on in our videos. Shout out to Luis for commenting on our videos, and this answer is basically towards you. So if you have questions about our move, please comment in this Sit Down Sunday, and maybe I'll answer it next Sit Down Sunday. So thank you for tuning in. And the question is, how much savings would you recommend to rent a home, furnish it, and move, the moving cost from the US to Mexico? And first off, right off the bat, it's relative. And you probably know this, Luis, you probably know this. It depends where you're moving from. I don't know where you live and those variables there. And it depends how you want to make the move. For example, Lynette and I, when we moved to New York, to Mexico, we decided to sell everything. Something we had to do is sell the car. We had a 2015 Subi, which was hard to sell because we loved that car. We sold that car. We sold 95% of our things. And we decided to move whatever valuables that were more sentimental things that, were valuable to us, but weren't needed for us to take to Mexico. We took that and drove it down to Arizona with my mom and dropped that stuff off there. So we just both flew from New York with just luggages. So whatever we could fit there, clothes, and basically more of our child's things, Matcha, our cat. We brought more stuff for her. We didn't really bring much, honestly. We brought things for work, my laptop, things like that, and my cameras and things that were valuable to me. But other than that, we didn't have anything. So that's the first variable, right? It depends what you're deciding to bring. There's choices you can make that can potentially save you money or cost you more. So when Lynette and I moved, we first decided to sell everything, and then we saved about $8,000. It was closer to $10,000 because the $2,000 we put in the budget for the expenses of flying and the travel cost, because I had to drive down from New York to Arizona and all that, and then buy another flight from Arizona to Mexico. So we put a $2,000 budget for travel expenses and miscellaneous, and then $8,000 was for the deposit for a rental plus the Airbnb. The Airbnb, by the way, was expensive, and we try to save money by finding an apartment that was relatively safe in a safe area based on the research we made. We were in La Ciudad de los Deportes, I believe, in Mexico City, south, fairly south. And if I remember correctly, I believe I paid $1,400 for the month, which that ate up a good chunk, right, of our $8,000 we had saved. And that was just for a month of Airbnb. And that month of Airbnb, we then used to walk and search for apartments through Facebook, through various rental websites. We did all this work and we had a month to find it. Of course, if we didn't find something within a month, we could have extended another month, but it was expensive. That rent was expensive, so we wanted to find something fast. That was something we didn't realize how hard it was going to be to find an apartment for multiple reasons. The benefit is that I am a Mexican citizen, so the rental process is a little bit easier. I just had to get my Mexican ID, my INE, and all that stuff figured out, and that helped me with finding apartments because If you're not a Mexican citizen, there's like additional variables, like things you need. Sometimes certain renters require like a double deposit, things like that we avoided by being a Mexican citizen. So those are a couple variables. If I had to do it again, I think I would have saved up maybe $5,000 more. So like $15,000, just because there was unexpected expenses that I didn't realize, I was gonna buy. I didn't realize I needed to buy. I think I mentioned in other videos, like a fridge, washer and dryer, like just restarting. I didn't realize how expensive it is to furnish an apartment. So I have the numbers here in front of me, so I'll just put them up on the screen as well. Basically, the fridge, again, I will also, put an asterisk here. It depends your budget and how much you're willing to spend. We don't have a lot of money. We were on a budget. We were trying to balance the books properly. So again, we didn't buy cheap things because we want to be here on the long term. So we bought fairly nice things. Again, not super top tier, but also not low tier. We wanted something that would last long. So for example, we bought the fridge. The fridge was $1,200. And again, I'm doing it in dollars because if you're watching this, you're most likely in the US, and that's why you're curious about the cost. The washer dryer combo, which is one machine, I never experienced that in the US. Usually it was two machines. Here it's one machine, and that cost us $800. The couch was $800. The bed and all the bedroom furniture was about $1,000. And then other essentials, like we had a second office space that, I bought furniture for the office and, a guest bed. Like it was a small bed, like a twin bed, and other furniture around the house. That was like another $1,500. So the total to just kind of like rough in the needs of a normal apartment, a couch, beds, things like that, it came out to $5,300. So that was already eating a lot of our budget, and that's not counting, the apartment, deposit and the payment of rent and other things that are needed. So that's why I recommend an extra $5,000. I think 15,000 would be more than enough to easily move without being too stressed on a budget. I mean, we were pretty tight. There were some stressful days, but thankfully, we were able to be okay. And again, we didn't buy crazy luxury stuff, just things that would make it feel like a home. So now, what did it cost in regards to the rent of the apartment we chose? Again, I want to reiterate here that it's relative. What are you willing to pay? What's in your budget and what are you comfortable paying? Lynette and I moving from the US, Lynette doesn't speak a lot of Spanish. There's these like added variables that got us a little bit more nervous. We wanted to be in a safer area. Again, relative to what we saw online. And now living in Mexico City, or when we lived there, I realize it's way safer than maybe you can read online or see on YouTube, things like that. Again, there's sketchy areas, but every country, every city, every big city is going to have sketchy areas that you have to be safe and self-aware of. And that isn't new. That happens in New York City, in Chicago, Phoenix, wherever, any big city, there's sketchy areas. So with that, we just based on the research we did online. So we chose an apartment that was above Polanco, not in a Polanco, but fairly close to Polanco. And Polanco is like this very ritzy, very bougie neighborhood in Mexico City. It's really nice to walk. It's super safe, but apartments there are super expensive. And again, relative to what I make is super expensive. There's probably people in Mexico that live here who have a company or something that can afford these things. To give you an idea, it's about 30,000 up to 100,000 pesos a month or more in apartments in Polanco. So that's super expensive. I'll put the conversion about the estimate in the screen here, how expensive that was. We aren't in that range at all. Even the apartment we chose was like basically hitting, we had very little room to wiggle. We couldn't have an emergency situation because our rent was covering majority of our budget. That was something I regret, honestly. I wish I would have done more research, maybe extended the Airbnb for 2 months, really got to know the neighborhoods, and then chose an apartment. So I feel like we chose too fast and that we bit the bullet because the rent we agreed on paying. So this apartment was again above Polanco and we're paying 18,500 pesos a month, which is about $1,000. That's not including electric, water, which doesn't add too much more. I have the numbers right here. Let me bump it up here. Utilities were a little, pretty manageable. It was like about $100 to $150 of utility, which was gas, water, and electric. And the internet that we chose at the time was Totalplay, which is a local Mexican company. I think it's Mexican, but it's a local company here. At the time, we loved it. The service was great in the sense of once you hired them, they installed it super fast and the internet worked, and it was relatively inexpensive for my needs. I need internet for work, and I was paying about 600 pesos a month for that internet provider. But when we moved from Mexico City, man, it was such a hassle to cancel Totalplay. So just for that, don't choose them. Man, it was a headache to unsubscribe or whatever. I didn't even cancel a contract because the contract I filled, you sign a 1-year contract, and it was basically like 2 weeks before the contract ends. And I was like, hey, I'm not going to renew the contract. I want to close it. And there's like 7 different numbers that you can call, and it was really confusion. Shout out to, I forget, I wish I remember, but there was like a YouTube channel that did a video, and in the comments of the video, there was a number that was the number to call to cancel Totalplay. And man, that was that was a lifesaver. So shout out to them, whoever they are, but they helped a lot because man, it was a headache to cancel. So just for that, I wouldn't recommend them. If you're going to be there long term, then maybe it's worth it, but there is other options. And now that we live in Pachuca, we have Starlink. It's way more expensive, but way less of a hassle. And I own the satellite, so wherever we move, I have internet. So I chose to do that route just because it's a need for my work to have good internet service, and it's worked really well here in Mexico, in Pachuca specifically. So again, just in case I missed it, the total expenses I had in Mexico City just to live, it was about $1,200 a month just for rent and utilities. You factor in our grocery spend. Again, we spend a little bit higher than maybe most people. We try to shop organic and all these other things. And I think we were spending about $500 a month in groceries, which again, I think is the higher end. There's ways to save money, go to mercados. There's other hacks you could do to save some money there. So again, total, we're probably spending like $1,500 to $1,700 a month to live in Mexico City, which I think is still pretty high. You can compare that to, again, it's high relative, right? If I had to say, I was living in Manhattan, for $1,700 a month, then one would say that's super cheap. Again, I wouldn't say I was living in Manhattan in Mexico City, but I was pretty close to the Manhattan of Mexico City. So I feel like if you compare it, then maybe you're like, oh, that's a great deal. That's a great price. I just feel like it was still pretty high on our budget. And that's actually one of the reasons we left Mexico City, because it was just too expensive. Again, and I'll put an asterisk here because you could move somewhere that is cheaper, right? There's rents, instead of, we're paying 18,500 pesos a month. You can easily find, not easily, but you can probably find something in the 10,000 peso range, 8,000 peso range, depending where, right? And depending what you're willing to sacrifice. Were we paying 19? Really? Oh gosh. Okay. So Lynette just corrected me. She was hearing me do my video, and she says we were paying 19,000 pesos a month in rent. So there's a 500 peso difference there. Everything else is the same, just it was 19,000 versus 18,500. I think I'm confusing it with what I'm paying now, because right now we're paying 8,500 pesos a month. So we're, it was a difference. It's a large difference between what we were paying then and what we're paying now. Okay, one surprise expense that I didn't expect to pay for, I wasn't aware of. I was kind of aware because I didn't have a car, but I didn't realize how much it was going to eat in our budget, was the variable of not having a vehicle. So to buy furniture, to do anything, we had to use an Uber, majority Uber. We didn't really use taxi, but basically Uber from wherever we were shopping, whether it's Home Depot, Walmart, Liverpool, IKEA, wherever we were shopping, we had to use like Uber to take that. So 2 big problems here. I mean, it's an added expense, and 2, it was a drag. Like it's difficult. You also feel bad for the person who's the Uber. I did warn them via text before they accepted the ride, like, hey, I need, we're moving things and I need space. I usually would buy pay for the Uber XL. So even though it was just 2 of us, we're filling it up with stuff, which I kind of felt bad for, but I was paying for it. But that was an expense I didn't realize. So a way where Lynette and I tried to avoid that expense, which again was a double-edged sword here, because we usually shop used, Facebook Marketplace. In the States was Craigslist, things like that. In Mexico, you can do the same. You can find Facebook Marketplace, find used things. And we did that for little things here and there. But for big things like the couch, majority of the stuff we bought new. And the reason we bought new was because most stores included the delivery fee in the payment of the thing. It was like free delivery. And the reason we took advantage of that is that we were in the 7th floor of a big, it was in the 9th floor building. And the tough thing was that building didn't allow us to use the elevator to move things up. So it's just Lynette and I. So imagine moving a fridge 7 flights of stairs. That's so stressful, terrible on your body. So how do I avoid that? Well, maybe I have to pay a little bit more for new, but Liverpool, delivers for free. So, they would put it all the way up to the 7th floor. So that was the way I did it. There were apps like Didi and other apps that I used to find delivery services that, would help you'd pay them a fee and they would help you move them upstairs. There were certain things that we used that for, but those were like little added expenses, $100, $200 there, $250 there, like that just added up to move things into the apartment, which also applied to moving out of the apartment. So those were expenses that maybe I didn't recall for. A cool thing though, I guess a transition here to a different variable of moving to Mexico was phone, right? What phone service we do? It was 2 phones, Lynette and I. The one we chose and the one I truly recommend because it's worked amazing for us is AT&T. They have a really cool service where you can pay for 12, I think it's like 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, I think up to 24 months in advance, and it's way cheaper. So for example, at my first contract, I did it for a year because, we weren't unsure how long we were going to stay here. We were still figuring it out. And we paid, I think it was like 4,000 pesos, for one line for a year with 7.5 gigs of data, which doesn't seem like a lot, but AT&T provides I think it's like 6 or 7 apps that are for free. Free is the wrong term, but it's also included in the plan unlimited. So for example, even though I had 7.5 gigs, I had unlimited Instagram, unlimited Uber, unlimited WhatsApp, unlimited Facebook. There was a bunch of apps. I think it's like Snapchat too. I think it's all like the Meta apps, I think even Twitter, X, also is included in that unlimited. So even though it's 7.5 gigs, the apps you use the most were included in the plan. So I think rarely ever did I ever hit my max threshold of gigs. So that's something that I like. And again, if you are able to pay for a year or more, it comes out to I think I paid $15 a month technically, if you do the math. So for 2 phones, Lynette and I, it was $30 a month for a full year service for basically unlimited, at least in my head, because we never hit the max of the service plan. So hopefully this was some value to you. I know I threw out so much different numbers. Please comment below if there's something I missed, something that you wish I would have shared in this video. Again, there's so many variables when moving. My best suggestion would be to visit this place for at least a month or 2, or if you're gonna do the deep dive like Lynette and I did and just sell everything, again, I would recommend a longer stay in an Airbnb to really research and walk around the areas to be able to really see what are the price points. And honestly, the best deals aren't on the internet. The best deals are seeing on signs walking the streets, calling those numbers and seeing what the prices are. That's honestly the best way to find better prices in Mexico City specifically. And I think this really applies to all Mexico. So what I've realized with this move is that it's more than just money, right? It's not just like a spreadsheet, like, oh, if I have this money, it's going to be easy. Any move has opportunity costs, whether it's time, energy, patience. There's so many variables. It's not just, money. I realized like it costs more than just money, but I think it was worth the payment. Something that Lynette and I had to do was basically rebuild our life. It's basically like we just got married, we have nothing, we moved in together, and now we have to build our life again, but now in a different country. We went into this in hard mode, or at least that's how it felt. Maybe I'm being exaggerated. But there's other ways to make it a little bit easier. What do I mean by that? Maybe, if you live in a border, if you live in a border state close to Mexico, like Texas or Arizona, it depends where you're trying to move to in Mexico. Maybe you can just drive through, of course there's other variables there for your safety and things like that, but I've heard of people doing it, and being safe is just doing it the right way. We didn't do that because we didn't want to take that risk. It was such a big move. We're moving to central Mexico, somewhere we've never been long-term ever. So we didn't want to do that. So we sold everything. So that was an expense, right? Potentially, if you already have a whole home, maybe it is cheaper to just pay $4,000 for someone to ship all your stuff. Again, I'm just throwing that number. I don't know what the price is to ship all your stuff, but there must be a service, and maybe it's worth it if you have really nice quality furniture, things like that, and they can just ship it. And maybe that makes the transition even easier. Maybe it's even less savings that you need to move to Mexico. But the thing that I really liked of how we moved, Lynette and I think it taught us what really matters, what things are valuable. There's a whole minimalism movement, and there's some beauty in that aspects of just carrying things. When we sold everything, taking, the valuable things, whether it's pictures, books, gifts that people have given us, those things that we cherish, we wanted to hold on, and we took it to Arizona, versus clothes and just furniture that just, was a thing we were able to sell. And that was pretty freeing, and it was like a beauty thing of just restarting and now actively choosing what we want to purchase, things that actually make a place feel like home, not just things to fill up space. So I hope this gives you a clearer picture. Hopefully my rants weren't too long. I hope this gives you a clearer picture of maybe the costs for us. And again, this is relative to how much money you make and what you're willing to pay, right? We aren't on the high budget realm, so this is a very middle budget, and it worked for us. My best advice is to talk to people that have done such a move, maybe similar to your situation, whether it's from the same states, the same city. There's a lot of great Facebook groups that I've joined that help by just commenting on those Facebook groups, asking questions. People are super kind and responding your questions, and that helped us, honestly. So please, that's another valuable asset that we leaned on to get some ideas about weather, about traffic, about smog, about safety, things like that. And that gave us a lot of help. And honestly, I think if you're in that position to help people, why not? Let's help people. So this was the Sit Down Sunday for this week. Hopefully this brought you some value. Please like and subscribe if this did bring you some value. I do this weekly series, and I want this to bring some value not only in you, but self-reflecting, honestly, in the things I've learned, the things I would do differently, but also the gratitude it takes to learn while running, falling and standing up and running again. Thank you again, guys, and I hope you enjoyed this video.